welcome to They Walk Among Us, a podcast dedicated to UK true crime. This is the 20th in a series of bonus episodes. To hear ad-free versions of our episodes a few days before their general release, head to patreon.com/They Walk Among Us. This episode contains distressing themes and descriptions of violence. This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener caution is advised. They Walk Among Us is part of the Acast Creator Network. Nottinghamshire has a rich history of stories and legends. It's the home of Robin Hood, an outlaw and a rebel who stole from the rich to give to the poor. Robin Hood and his band of merry men lived in Sherwood Forest, hiding from the Sheriff of Nottingham and rebelling against the tyranny of a cruel prince. As Nottingham's famed hero, Robin Hood's story is known worldwide. But for every hero, there is a villain. A villain is defined in the dictionary as a cruelly malicious person involved in or devoted to wickedness or crime. Villains are thought to be an integral part of the plot of a story. Their role is to oppose the hero. But sometimes there are villains with no agenda or purpose. Damien Hammond described himself as a villain. He once said that as long as you are not being dishonest, then you are not committing a crime. Hammond believed that because he dressed like a villain, he should be allowed to get away with acting as an anti-hero. Hammond had a history of mental health issues and began dressing like Batman's adversary, the Joker. He did this at first to stand out while sleeping rough, in the hopes that people would give him some money. He dyed his hair green, painted his face white with large black rings around his eyes, donned a purple suit, and drew on the infamous Joker smile. In Nottinghamshire there is a village called Gotham, like the city the Joker terrorizes in the Batman comics and movies. However, Hammond lived around 8 miles away in Nottingham. Hammond was well known in the area due to his striking appearance and criminal history. In 2016, the 26-year-old known as the Joker of Nottingham was banned from entering the Idlewild Centre in Sutton in Ashfield after repeated incidents of criminal damage. The following year he was charged with theft, possession of an offensive weapon and indecent exposure in Nottingham. He also obstructed a police officer and was arrested for disorderly conduct. By this point, Hammond had over 80 criminal charges against him. Jeff Shawgay, a community protection enforcement officer, told Nottingham Magistrates Court that defendant's criminal conduct, involving intimidating retail staff and disorderly conduct towards police officers, in one case striking an officer to the forehead whilst obstructing a drug search, has been conducted over a prolonged period of time. That, together with him altering his appearance to resemble the Joker, appears to be calculated to induce fear into members of the public and retail staff in the city centre. His actions had the capacity to endanger retail staff and other innocent parties nearby. It's clear that action needed to be taken to prevent his continued criminal and antisocial behaviour. Damien Hammond was prohibited from entering Nottingham city centre and given a 21-week prison sentence, suspended for 12 months. Police Inspector Anwar Ahmed described Hammond as a persistent offender whose behaviour had not only caused distress to shop workers and members of the public, but escalated to him being disorderly and obstructive toward police officers. Quote, "Despite being offered support from partner agencies and previously being given a second chance by the court, his offending continued. It is very rare for someone to be banned from the entire city centre, but when necessary, we and our partner agencies will take all steps available to us to prevent this kind of behaviour." In the months prior, Damien Hammond had been arrested for disorderly conduct in a Tesco Express supermarket and shoe zone store in the city centre, along with possession and disorderly conduct on Collins Street. In February 2019, he was found to be in possession of some black mamba, a name given to a synthetic drug, also known as spice. When the arresting officers pulled apart a cigarette Hammond had rolled, they found green vegetable matter inside. Hammond told them he had paid for it, and he intended to smoke it. This was his 94th offence, and his 6th offence relating to drugs. Hammond's solicitor Chris Saunders admitted to Nottingham Magistrates Court that his client had a lengthy criminal history and had been in custody on several occasions, but Hammond had made progress since he was placed on probation. Saunders said, "This week he starts drug rehabilitation work. He is working with social services and with mental health services. He is in touch with the accommodation agencies to find accommodation because he is homeless, living on the streets. Despite that, he has a partner, a lady with no previous convictions. He is focused. This is a lad who is trying to put things behind him. He is trying to put things right. It is time to be encouraging, rather than punitive." Damien Hammond was given a conditional discharge, but it was not long, just a month in fact, before he committed his 95th offence. He was spotted on the tram in Nottingham's Market Square, a technical breach of his criminal behaviour order. Hammond was approached by officers as he walked along the canal towpath on London Road. A struggle ensued as he tried to flee, causing both Hammond and an officer to fall into the canal. Thankfully, no one was injured in the incident, and Hammond was given an £80 fine to add to the over £1,000 he already owed. In his position, it was a fine he could ill afford. Hammond's solicitor said, "It was a technical breach, no more than that. Damien dresses as the Joker. On the tram he was wearing a bright green suit and white face paint. He had even bought a ticket. There is no suggestion he was doing anything involved in criminal behaviour." Unsurprisingly, within a few weeks, Hammond was back in court, yet again charged with breaching his criminal behaviour order. Although he was hardly inconspicuous, Hammond was spotted walking around the market square. Officers asked him why he was there. According to the prosecutor, Hammond replied, "I make good money here, and you make money." Speaking about his client, Bill Saunton told the court, "Mr. Hammond is the Joker, well known to the public of Nottingham. He is one of the best-known faces in Nottingham, certainly one of the best known to the police. It is not the most sensible thing to go right into the middle of the market square where there are more cameras than anywhere else and stand there waiting for the police to be called. If you are trying to raise a bit of money, you should perhaps go somewhere a little quieter." But he didn't want to do that. It was a night of horrendous rain, and he had nowhere to go. He is of no fixed abode. He is sleeping on the streets, and his tent has been stolen. He spent all day wandering around in the rain, trying to get some protection from the elements. He then thought, I will stand in the middle of the marketplace and the police will take me in. He has not bothered anyone. Damien Hammond was given 1 day's detention for the breach, which was deemed served as he had been in custody after the offence. However, it did not take long for Hammond to be brought back before a magistrate. In August, Hammond was seen walking around a churchyard on Maid Marian Way, asking for cigarettes. This area was inside the exclusion zone. Solicitor Chris Saunders explained in mitigation that his client was at a disadvantage over other homeless people. Saunders said that Hammond could not go to the church to get food handouts or to the soup kitchen. Quote, "This is somebody who is trying his best under incredibly difficult circumstances, caused by the order preventing him from accessing facilities." A magistrate judge told Hammond that it was of the utmost importance that he understood the serious nature of committing offences within 4 working days of being given another chance. The judge told him to embrace the opportunity of an anti-drug program and warned Hammond that if he did not, another magistrate would likely revoke the suspended sentence. On the morning of December 30th, 2019, council workers from Nottingham City Council were clearing rubbish from the street on Strelly Road in Bilborough. As they cleared shards of broken glass from around a discarded television, someone called out from a window above them, shouting that it was their TV and it should be left alone. After several words were exchanged, the man disappeared from the window. Suddenly, one of the workers fell to the floor, bleeding heavily from a large head wound. On the ground next to him was a bowling ball, entangled in a pair of jeans. The worker was rushed to the hospital, and the authorities were called to the scene. Once the police arrived, they recognized the man at the window. It was Damien Hammond. Hammond refused to leave his flat and began throwing items out of the window at the officers. After unsuccessfully negotiating for over an hour, Hammond climbed out of the window and perched on the ledge, 14 feet from the ground. He began waving a hammer. Following a lengthy standoff, Hammond attempted to set himself on fire before jumping from the window ledge to the street below. Damien Hammond was quickly arrested. The victim of the bowling ball attack was transported to Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham and admitted to the intensive care unit. The blow to the head had caused a skull fracture and brain hemorrhage. At a trial in December 2020, the victim described as best he could what happened on the day he was struck by a bowling ball thrown from a window. "The last thing I remember was picking the pan shovel up and walking back towards the van with it. I can't remember anything else after that. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital ward. It was a neurological ward. I believe this was about 2 or 3 days after the incident. I can't remember the first ward I was on, though I know initially I went into intensive care. According to the medical staff at QMC, I had a fractured skull to the left back part of my skull, and I had a bleed on the brain. I have got brain damage that has still not recovered, and I may not recover. I have been told that I may have seizures and blackouts from the injuries." Damien Hammond pleaded not guilty to causing grievous bodily harm with intent, but pleaded guilty to a charge of affray. He told the court that he had been living in the flat since late August, and on the morning of December 30th he heard a noise from his window. Hammond had been smoking black mamba for 3 days straight and had not slept when he saw 2 council workers outside his flat. He believed they were searching through the foliage below, clearing up evidence before coming to kill him. Hammond claimed he was just trying to scare them off and grabbed a bowling ball, wildly throwing it out of the window. Perplexingly, however, it hit the worker standing closest to the wall. Hammond told the court, "I heard 2 thuds and knew it wasn't right. The victim was hitting the floor when I arrived at the window, and I was scared I had killed him. If someone upsets me, I react. If I had time to reflect, I wish I had grabbed some water and tipped it on them." After deliberation, jurors would find Damien Hammond guilty of causing grievous bodily harm with intent. 2 months later, in February 2021, he was sentenced to 12 months for his guilty plea to the affray charge and 16 years for GBH, 3/4 of which he would have to spend behind bars, serving the remainder on license. Judge James Sampson addressed Hammond before imposing the sentence. He called him a prolific offender who had racked up 110 offences over 17 years. Quote, "Your offences have mainly been of an acquisitive nature, but also including threatening behaviour and a wounding. You are an antisocial, threatening and violent individual, and your behaviour is escalating in terms of seriousness." So where are we now? Detective Constable Sarah Gregg, who had worked on the case, was interviewed by a reporter for the Nottingham Post. She spoke about Damien Hammond, his criminal history, and the horrific implications of throwing a bowling ball from 14 feet towards someone on the ground. Speaking about the victim of the attack, DC Gregg said, "There was no other consequence than a very serious head injury that in the end amounted to lasting brain trauma, and the victim and his family have been hugely affected by it. They have been an absolutely brilliant family to work with. They have supported the police investigation and just wanted some justice for the victim, as well as wanting life to go back to normal. But unfortunately for them, because of what has happened, it can't." Damien Hammond is now behind bars, and after more than 100 chances to turn his life around, his luck ran out. Thank you for listening, and special thanks to our Patreon supporters. For more information on this episode, please see the show notes or visit our website, theywalkamonguspodcast.com.